200 naira, you get 2,000 naira.
Well, like,
load 200 naira and get 4,000 naira. And then if you load 500 naira, you get 10,000 naira.
Okay.
Isn't that incredible?
Okay.
Well, don't waste time now. Get back on NTN right now and know what it truly feels like to be welcomed back. Remember, terms and conditions apply.
All right, we're back in studio. Mics are up. Good morning, Lagos. You are listening to Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. Welcome inside a freshly pressed 981 with Valentine Ohu and myself.
Folu.
Yep, it is 7:31 this fantastic Tuesday morning. We know it's a little bit rainy, but we do have you covered this morning. We're jumping into detailed newspaper analysis, and to help us out with just that, we have Ugo Dre of Nairametrics in the studio. His silver foxiness. Good morning. How you doing?
Hi, good morning.
That's okay. I hope you like that title I've just created now.
It's okay. Now.
It's good. It's good. That's true. As a youth, that's how we operate. Lagos, we're up on YouTube streaming as we usually do these mornings. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. That is the official handle. That's where you can find us. You can also tweeting that number to you right now so we can move forward. Speaking of moving forward, let's move forward onto our first story of this morning from ThisDay newspaper. Interesting stuff.
Yes, with the headline, Senate to obey court order on Omo-Agege's reinstatement. So the Senate last night said it would not stop the senator representing Delta Central, Senator Omo-Agege, from resuming today. It said it has been briefed by its lawyers on the last Thursday's judgment of the Federal High Court in Abuja that nullified its suspension of Omo-Agege, as it has resolved not to stop the senator from coming into the chamber. Omo-Agege, on his hand, said yes, he's going to attend. It's fine. I mean, court order or no court order, that was not supposed to, that decision wasn't supposed to be made. He's feeling proud. What's your take?
Would you feel proud?
The court is on my side.
Exactly. I guess the first thing that comes to mind when you read this is, why didn't the lawyers of the Senate advise them in the first place that it was actually a wrong move to suspend him, especially when there's a precedent already confirming that the Senate can't actually suspend any of the members, at least on the same grounds. So for me, on Valentine, one thing that, in as much as to the credit of this particular Senate, they have at least to an extent passed a few laws, but they seem to be distracted every other time by things that are just unnecessary, things that don't matter.
Distracted.
I don't know why they seem to like to play it. It's as if we have a Senate with that are made up of a bunch of kids, right? So kids who just like a lot of infighting and playing to the gallery, whereas there are burning issues in the country that need to be attended to.
Yeah.
So there's security, there's insecurity
There's
issues,
budget.
there's budget issues that they haven't even passed yet. The economy is basically just picking up, but it's on shaky ground. The world is burning, all over. The Middle East is burning. Oil prices are probably skyrocketing. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. Fuel prices might probably just go up, and they are just busy in fighting. So how do you govern like this?
Well,
right?
I mean, a very interesting question, Ugo Dre, because I was going to ask, we the people for whom they are meant to sit and carry out, their legislative function, what do you think could be done to adjust the behavior of the Senate going up? We are in an election year, if we calculate. What do you think could, all the sort of court rulings that have been coming out, the different things that the Senate and the National Assembly have been standing up to speak against, how do you think we as a people can adjust this behavior?
It's actually difficult, Folu, and I mean, you only have two options really. One is to vote some of these guys out, right? And then secondly, is to probably recall some of your senators. But then our democracy is fragmented. I guess the other stories that are coming through will probably discuss some of these things there. There's something fundamentally wrong with our democracy, and until we address those issues, things like this would always reoccur, right?
Very
Thank you very
interesting. Lagos, do share your thoughts with us as well. Your messages can be tweeted to us. Use the hashtag FreshlyPress981, or you can send them to our WhatsApp number, just as MI from Akoka has done. In first with the comments, he says, Omo-Agege really has his wits around the law. I listened to him speak about the court order, and he could almost pass for a legal luminary. Now, it's very hard to place that side by side his antecedents with the Mace saga. So the Senate should respect the law, take their L, like the movie.
Exactly. Just pocket the L.
Okay, the L.
Please fire your lawyers.
Oh boy, yeah. Premium Times is next. Buratai opens military base in Birnin-Gwari, and he's asked soldiers to go to that location. The operation is called Idon Raini. Operation Idon Raini at the Kamfayan Doka village. Tuko Buratai, the Chief of Army Staff, flagged off a 2-battalion forward operation base at the troubled Birnin-Gwari area of Kaduna State yesterday. When he flagged this off, he said they need to change their approach. They shouldn't take a defensive approach. They should take an offensive one, and that he expects resounding results within 2 weeks. What's your take, Ugo?
Again, Valentine, reading the story, the first time I heard this, Birnin-Gwari, and that was last week, or that was last week or 2 weeks ago, when we heard there were 45 people killed there.
Yeah, it was last week.
Yeah, no. I asked myself, what's in this town, this local government area? Do they have oil, or have they just discovered diamonds, or what's in there that bandits are going to kill people for? I mean, like, what's the motive? What do you just go in and start to kill people for? Or, like they did, I think was it yesterday or 2 days ago, I learned that they kidnapped maybe something people travel yesterday, exactly. So what's in there? I mean, like, there's just so much insecurity. And ask yourself,
is this resource control?
Is it
what's going on there?
Or
I mean,
just crazy people.
It could arguably be a resource issue, because when you look at Birnin-Gwari, where it sits on the map, it is near certain bodies of water. So one would imagine that there is relative arable farming land, things for your cattle, your cow, and it's really, it tends to continuously feel like a struggle for space, a struggle for control of certain resources.
But to what value? That's what I really don't get. Right? So you can understand when people are fighting over, fighting over oil or fighting over mineral resources.
But that is the resource in the area, isn't it? We're looking at livestock, which we've seen now people are willing to kill for, because that's their livelihood. We've seen the cost of the meat and the cattle that comes down south. You're looking for arable farming land, especially when perhaps you're not making as much, your education is poor. So a number of these factors seem to be coming together to result in a very volatile situation.
Anyway, my own concern is that, look, this military, in as much as we know that they're not that, powerful, at least our military, they're stretched already. I mean, there's just so much skirmish going on everywhere around the country, and there's just so much that they can handle. So they're fighting terrorists, around the borders and within the country, and they also have to start to fight bandits who are fighting, who are jostling over land and issues like this. So how far can our military go? I mean, like, what else do we need to do to start to address this thing?
And the Chief of Army Staff statements really kind of gives an idea to what this, where these problems could have come up from, because he mentioned clearly, he said, well, it might be a sarcastic statement, but it's sending a direct message to the soldiers saying they're not outsiders, they're not coming from the moon or space, they are within these areas. You can just go there and fish them out. Don't just wait for them to come to you the next time.
And in his words, he actually says go and kill them, kill all of them.
Well, very, very serious stuff to think about there. Still more messages coming through. Bingus on WhatsApp says the Senate President, with his penchant for suspending any senator who decides to speak contrary to his opinion, has suddenly realized that he has bitten off more than he can chew on the Omo-Agege suspension. He couldn't get away with this illegality the way he did with Ali Ndume. Kudos to Omo-Agege for his doggedness, and he goes on to say that cattle...
Abuja, especially around the Federal Secretariat complex, Shiite youths were seen... We've been talking about these things and his detention for over a while, but they're still causing mayhem, asking for the same release. The divisional crime officer went to that zone. He's from the Federal Secretariat Police Station, Linus Oga. He sustained injuries in his face. Somebody threw a stone at him when he berated the youths for being unruly. And then one of the policemen was reported.
Yes, they didn't take to that speech so
yeah,
nicely.
No, they didn't like it. So he threw a stone at him and he injured his face, unfortunately, and he was rushed to the hospital. One other policeman He said mistakenly released the shots in the air. And then that angered them the more. And they started pelting them.
Poor management. I mean, sorry, Ugo Dre, what your take on this story?
Look, at least the good thing is that at the end of the day, they dispersed the crowd. But I saw a video of these guys. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? And, you know, they had this armored vehicles back and they were shooting at them, and these guys were coming at them.
Yeah.
Yes.
They really didn't care.
They were
Some of them even attempted to climb the vehicles.
So how do you
fight that?
How do you fight this kind of people? Right? How do you fight? And this is in Abuja, not like in some, you know,
the center of it all.
Yeah, it's in Abuja, right? And they're brazen enough to face military armored vehicles, and they really don't care.
Shouldn't there be a time where the government calls for a sit down with the bodies involved? And
there's nothing to sit down. The thing is that they want their leader out, and the government is actually holding the guy illegal.
Absolutely, it's very clear. They have had sit downs. They've gone to court over this matter. The court had declared that he should be freed, and so you're now in a situation where you've stirred up your youth populace of a certain area to an extent where they have no more fear or regard for their own life or well-being, and they're willing to use that against you in large numbers.
How do you fight that? And so the same thing the government is probably trying to avoid by keeping him locked, right? They are facing this every day, and it's building up.
Yes.
Right. So initially they were banked up where they were in their own in their state, but now they moved to the federal capital. So where next from there on? So they started building, and they're beginning to build sentiments. So sentiments are beginning to follow them, and now these guys actually don't care. So how do you fight somebody who doesn't really care for his life?
It really should be handled before it gets out of hand, to be honest.
Very interesting. Speaking of interesting, we've got this interesting message in from Paul. Paul is a little bit upset with us this morning. He says, I sense some bias against the Senate. The executive, legislative are all terrible. The Senate has been exemplary in obeying court orders vis-a-vis the presidency. So I have to ask what the Senate has done to warrant this bias compared with the executive. Please balance the narrative. Where the executive
nobody's looking at a court order. Like, look, is this what the Senate should be doing? Just ask yourself that. I mean, like, is this what they should? Is this how they should better your life? Is this what you put them there for? Right? That's not what they're there to do. At least the number one legislative responsibility they have, which is to pass the budget, they haven't done that. Okay, so, and this is what they're fighting over. And then you waste our time suspending a senator when you know that you actually do not have the powers to do so. So please,
so like even the Senate is not immune to the law.
Of course they're not.
I just find it interesting that the executive wasn't mentioned at all in that particular story, but you found a way to tie that in. And where we have spoken about the executive, which is just now in relation to El Zakzaki, we've been very clear in condemning actions that run afoul of the law, as we should be. But let's move on to our next story.
Our next story is from ThisDay. Chief Justice attack. He says the attack on Port Harcourt courts is a danger to democracy. That's talking about Justice Walter Norem. He condemned the recent attack by armed hoodlums on the High Court in Port Harcourt, River State, warning that the act, if not checked, could endanger the nation's democracy. Now, the courts that they attacked really was the venue for the ruling where they granted an interlocutory injunction stopping the APC from going ahead with the local government congresses. The thugs were alleged to have attacked the High Court to stop it from making that pronouncement on that suit filed by another faction of the APC led by Senator Magnus Ade. So when we see these intra-party disputes, and based on this premise, really, it just makes one shudder.
That's what I was saying.
In sight of 2019.
This is 2018.
Yeah.
1999, we just started democracy. So 2018, we still have this kind of infighting, right, within the same party. So how do we start to fix democracy when fundamentally the entire model, the entire structure, format of democracy that we have now is flawed?
But Ugo Dre, in a way, one could also argue that we are seeing democracy sort of working, or at least scaring the people in the way that it should scare them, because there's certain actions that say people who are terrified of things going in a way that they cannot control, which is where you then see this sort of reaction. I mean,
to whose benefits?
Not our own. I'm just pointing
exactly
out
to whose benefit. So what kind of democracy do you have that typically throws up thugs or people who ordinarily, may not have been successful in the private sector, and these are the guys that you have, or people who, over the years, or can't actually get very good jobs? these are the guys that you have in the grassroots of your democracy, the fundamentals of your democracy. I mean, like in other countries, the people who are in the grassroots are probably guys who just came out of university, who are basically, who joined a political party out of some kind of ideology, right? And they are this is just volunteer work. They do this for 2-3 years. They love what they're doing.
Completely
right?
understood. But again, in the interest of just looking at the way it has progressed, right? We are seeing at least more people within the private sector who are trying to get involved in policy making, in governance. And I think we will see that hopefully filter through. We do have a fundamental problem in terms of education. So perhaps some people that should be at a grassroots level are not necessarily there. They've traveled to Canada or depending, I don't know. But we are seeing more of an introduction, because just how many years ago did we transition from a dictatorship really into a democracy?
So many years ago.
It's not that long. But it is in our lifetime. This is my point. It's still within it. Looking at the way a country develops,
already.
But what's
America is 200 years now. They still have problems.
But what's interesting from what you said, Folu, is the fact that people now realize the strength or the power of the judiciary.
Yes.
So they are now paying attention to things that they overlooked.
And the power of their vote.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. But we still have a problem with grassroots democracy in Nigeria. So the incentive is kind of upside down, right? So there's an incentive for the big guys to probably come out and contest for election, maybe at the national level. But the grassroots guys, the people who actually, who make democracy work in the grassroots, who occupy it now? Dogs.
All right, fair enough. Thank you very much for that. We have more messages coming through. Lawal says, concerning the court ruling, I wonder why Honorable Abdul Mumin Jibril, the Kano State Representative suspension, ran through. Could it be that he had the House and Executive against him? Very interesting question. Tunde says the government is raising another set of brazen youth that will be more catastrophic than Boko Haram. Please, the government should obey the law. I do believe he's talking about the Shi'ites. Wagwengus comes back to say the Shiite group has consistently shown the propensity for violence and disregard for the rule of law. The mayhem caused by this group yesterday has lent credence to the fact that they could be a threat to the security of the country. I now understand the reason why the military descended on them so heavily, which eventually led to the incarceration of their leader. And let's see, I more messages very quickly on WhatsApp. Chris says, cattle may be like oil in the north, but I don't get that you'll run over my farmland, my livelihood to do your own grazing. Where's the justice in that? The government seems complacent. We sure need change in Nigeria,
yes,
he says. All right, let's move on now. Talk about this next story from the New Telegraph. Buhari, $320 million of stolen money by the late head of state General Sani Abacha will be spent on the conditional cash transfer scheme of the administration. That's what the New Telegraph is reporting. And the reasons for this, according to a statement given by the president, is that it was one condition given by the Switzerland authorities for the repatriation of funds. Ugo Dre, the article really is talking about how the president, who was represented by the vice president, Professor Yemi Oshibanjo, were really talking about collaboration between African countries, talking about how it's important for stolen loot to be repatriated without conditions. Over to you.
Okay, before I get to that, there was one quote that I saw in this article that was kind of stuck to me, and it was, it is estimated that corruption cost the African continent over $148 billion per annum
yearly.
Right, so $148 billion. So in as much as we are backward as a continent, we also waste the $148 billion
every year.
Yeah, every year on corruption. Now back to this. Yes, I saw the conditional transfer, and you ask yourself, I mean, why give us conditions for our money? But you know what? You really can't blame them, because at the end of the day, what's the point? So someone stole money, and then put it in your hands, right, or in your account, and then somebody else, I actually own this money, and yes, you do own it, but not just you, a whole lot of people own that money, and I'm going to give it back to you, and you're probably going to steal it again. So basically, you can't take money from one thief and give to another. So perhaps that's why you're having all this conditional transfer. But then, or this transfer based on condition. The government wants to hand this over to ordinary Nigerians, which is fine. But why not just target this money at areas where
into specific
projects that are tangible or that can help lives, right? I know that there's a risk there, because I mean, any contract you want to do now, even if it's to build hospital, there's somebody there ready to chop the money.
But you see, Ugo Dre, we say this now. We say, oh, let's put it in particular projects. But then when we have foreign bodies come in and say you need to invest in your people, we all cheer. Now, this is something that the government from the beginning had said, this is for the most disadvantaged of the people. This is for argument's sake. So what's wrong in then saying, yes, this is what we're going to dedicate this set of funds towards the people that need it the most?
Oh, so what do you intend, what do you stand to gain as a country, as an economy, when you take this money, split it and start handing it over to them?
Yeah,
well, they continue. First of all, it's not big. First of all, you continue receiving stolen funds back into your country, considering that they're giving it to you as a condition. Listen, let's be honest. It's a negotiation. Yes, you're already saying that these people need this little bit of money to go feed. Yes, long term, maybe not the most sensible thing, but short term gets you where you need to get, at least till the next.
Who do you classify as a vulnerable Nigerian?
I think there's
everybody.
Yeah, so I mean, no, that's the basis I'm talking about.
Okay.
Like it's vague.
See, to me,
not direct.
I'd rather you just get these guys. I mean, give them scholarships to go into university.
You would rather, but how? Listen.
That's how you.
Yes,
sort of get benefits from.
No problem. The people that say no, we don't want to go to school.
We just want the money.
And
and you spend it on a day's food or 2 days food, and that's it.
What if they want to just be rearing their cattle? That do.
I mean, but it's
Okay.
and
I agree. Nigerians everywhere. Nigerians
so,
everywhere have this
Nigerians out there
attitude.
who okay, so you get all this kind of money and you share this money, and yet every day in traffic you still see beggars.
Share to
Right.
who?
We do have to move on. We've got to move on. We've got messages coming through. IK asks us, guys, why are you blaming the Senate when the government agencies have consistently been unable to defend their budgets? Let's stop obfuscating issues, says IK. I don't believe that we are, because if they've got the energy and the time to dedicate and resources to continuously summoning individuals, to continuously tangle other individuals in court, I do believe that if they focus that energy solely on moving things like our budget forward, we would be in a better position.
Why keep bringing the executive into this?
I'm a bit
probably commented on the heels of the last message.
Well, let's see. Kenny Atuge sends in this message. It says it's very obvious that some people continue to corrupt Nigeria and Africa at large in order to live comfortably in it. Such a shame. While Abby from Ikoyi says, Folu, our democracy is not that young. The Rwandan genocide of 1994 may have cost them their humanity, but look at where they are today. We give too much excuse for mediocrity, hence mediocrity is what we have. We need more solutions, not just pointing out our failures. I agree from you, Abby, but it did take something as incredibly revolutionary as a genocide, and for a lot of democracies that we see today, if you trace back into their history, it did take something that took out almost half the country or population.
Amara here says, Bia Bikono, this Abacha would not finish.
You know they finish. She just, I mean, that's like the greatest savings ever that Nigeria has ever had. Like,
so the heart of man must be desperately wicked for one person to loot a whole nation's fund. And, whoa, I can't even deal. That's what she said.
We have to move on very quickly. Our next story: in the ex-DG Bursar of Education Agency have been docked for alleged 208 million naira fraud. Now, the EFCC on Monday arraigned the duo of Peter Ojedele and Ali Amadu, the former Director General and the Bursar of the National Institute for Educational Planning and Administration, respectively. This was on counts of forgery and obtaining money under false pretenses. They're saying they received 208 million naira from the federal government as personnel funds, but when they went through some of the details, there were, as usual, fake names, inflated price of certain things, and they say they didn't remit the excess fund to the government treasury. Ugo Dre, there's no mention of what the excess fund is, but again, some more theft, but this time in our education system.
Yeah, and it's the same model that others have used as well. But I mean, what's shocking here is that, have you ever heard of this agency before?
I have never. I didn't know it existed. What does it do?
Money in there and you're stealing. So you can imagine how many agencies you have out there and people that are stealing all around us. I mean, the corruption is just, my God. I've never heard of this agency.
So how do we deal?
So where did this money come from? Like 208 million. And it's the same model, right? So, you know, just so they probably give you money, divert it, you don't bring it into the state coffers, or you have some fake what do they call it, ghost workers lying in
Our
there,
favorites,
collecting the money and keeping, and it's the same thing, same model. So if you actually left for the EFCC, left for the EFCC or is it ICPC? I don't know who should be following those kind of cases. Like, if you go into every government agency out there, you probably find someone like this. They're stealing, and it's brazen stealing. So no wonder you go to all the liaison offices around Bishop. What's the name of this road again behind here by the Barbage area? You have all those liaison offices.
Yes, Amadu Bello.
Yeah, Amadu Bello.
Yes.
They're all dead.
Yes.
Line follow, yeah.
Right at the beach.
Prime location.
Yeah. And so this just puts, this basically what these guys were supposed to use that money for, to fix some of their liaison office, and they just diverted it. So that some of these are not just there for nothing. They're not dead for nothing, because people actually appropriate money for it, but it goes into private pockets, and it's in every facet of government. Right? So, like I said, Folu, we've got a problem with our democracy, and it's endemic.
Well, I do have to just take a moment to recognize the judges and the justices that are sitting and are trying to push democracy forward. I actually forgot to mention that where the Chief Justice mentioned the attack on the Port Harcourt court premises, yes, because that justice went ahead. Justice Chiwendu Nwogu of the High Court went ahead and granted that injunction, even though they were literally physically under attack.
Yes.
I think that's very courageous, and people forget that judges are quite often threatened. So let's see how this plays out. Speaking of attacks, gunmen in Bayelsa have attacked the Air Force Helipad and killed one airman. The story tells us that this is in a sort of lead up to 2019 elections. That's what they're postulating, that we see these sort of things. This is how they try to arm themselves. Ugo Dre.
Yeah, I mean, very, very bizarre story for me. Attacking the helipad, shot one person just to
collect a
rifle.
It feels like a lot.
Yeah, so I really don't know what it's about. But I mean, but if this is a precursor to what we expect to see in 2019, then you really, really should get worried. And this is Bayelsa State, a really small state, so I find this quite bizarre. But I mean, this is the kind of, like I said earlier, it's the kind of democracy we practice at the grassroots level. All that matters is just how you can muscle out your opponent, either the gun or intimidation, or you probably just steal the ballot away. This is exactly what. But why you should go in, to military zone and kill one person just steal a rifle? It's probably
it's very unwarranted, man.
Yeah, perhaps there's something else that's coming and we're not fully aware of. But I find the story rather bizarre.
Very sad stuff. Soul of the airmen, rest in peace. This is in very quickly a message in from Henry Manuel, who says Valentine and Ugo Dre think they're vulnerable Nigerians, laughing out loud.
We are.
Are you guys surviving on less than $1
We're being affected by the looting and the corruption in Nigeria as well, so we're vulnerable.
Exactly.
He says.
I'm not in Canada.
KB says, an agency for what? Education? Our country is just stealing from its future. And we round up with this final story in from the Guardian newspaper. Police stole Kano Speaker's impeachment and seal off the assembly. So police personnel of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps yesterday prevented an alleged move by aggrieved members of the Kano State House of Assembly to impeach its speaker, Yusuf Abdullah. Please take us through this very quickly, Ugo Dre.
Yeah, so the speaker was 24 legislators in the House have decided to impeach this guy. Getting ready to slam the impeachment, and of course the guy had his own plan B. Typical of, I mean, it's not the first time we're hearing this. Back to this has been happening since 1999. So I mean, so the guy just the same playbook. Yeah. Okay, how do you stop things like this? If you're on the good side of the governor, get the police in and just scatter everywhere.
He said the major was that the Saturday's Congress, APC's Congress, he did not push for their candidates.
Yeah. And then that's why they want to impeach it. So to whose benefit?
And just to round up, we've got quite a few messages coming through on Twitter. We have this one in by Iselugwe Osazo Mozuma, who says, Chata talked about the incentives in democracy on this show once upon a time. The incentives in Nigerian democracy is just to steal. And until that changes, it will be upside down. While Bolari Wadurojai says the grassroots of our democracy, populated by the wrong people, the solution is two-pronged: fix poverty and unemployment, and improve the quality of existing players, and more involvement by you and I. Question: have you ever attended a ward meeting? Answer: no.
I'm not a politician.
And Anti-Yellow asked why we're blaming lowly northerners for their ignorance. Nobody mentioned anything about northerners specifically. And Ineka Joseph Ejike says the way this Abacha loot is going, it may rival our foreign reserve one day. Bottomless loot. Well, I've heard you. Thank you very much, Ugo Dre. We appreciate having you on the show as always. Ugo Dre of Nairametrics. Please find him up on social media and read some of the very engaging articles they have up on the website. Valentine and I are still here, aren't we, Val?
Yes, we are. Coming up next at 8:15 is the great all exciting news and entertainment.
Yes, stay with us.
The headlines. The stories.
Thanks,
man.
Thanks, man.